Bonjour, Tansei, Wadzie, Ha, Edlanete. Welcome. This video series for parents is presented by the Speech and Language team at the Manitoba First Nations Education Resource Center. In this video, we will learn about symbol communication and how we can support our children who use AAC. I am Megan McCauley and I am one of the speech language pathologists at MFNERC. From this presentation today, I am hoping that you will learn what AAC is, the different types of AAC, who uses it, why it is important, and most importantly, I hope that you take away some best practices to teach AAC and support those children who use it. What is communication? Communication happens all day, every day, in every environment. It is a two-way process that requires both a listener and a speaker or user. Communication enhances our lives and allows us to express our wants, needs, ideas, and feelings. We communicate for a wide variety of reasons and functions, which are listed below. We use it to make requests, protest and reject, greet, comment, share information, request information, ask and answer questions, and share our feelings. So what is AAC? Let's discuss what exactly it is. AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. Augmentative means something is used to supplement our verbal speech. This would be things like gesturing or pointing. For example, if I said, "Look over there," while pointing to the right, I would be using augmentative communication. Alternative, on the other hand, means instead of verbal speech. This can be things such as writing, texting, or picture communication. AAC systems are recommended for individuals who cannot meet their daily needs with spoken language alone. Some children that may benefit from AAC are ones who are nonverbal or who have limited verbal skills, children with speech sound disorders, children who have limited expressive and receptive language, and children with either autism, cerebral palsy, or Down syndrome. Let's talk a bit about the different types of AAC. First off, we have no-tech devices. These do not require any extra equipment. So as I said before, this can be things such as pointing, gesturing, facial expressions, sign language. Next, we have low-tech devices. Low-tech devices don't require a battery. They are often a good starting point for a new AAC user and help teach them how to get their needs met. So this can be things such as core boards, picture symbol books, an alphabet board, or writing. We will go over some of these in the next slide. Finally, there is high-tech devices. And these are systems that use technology. This can be things such as using an iPad or a dedicated communication system. Here are some pictures of the types of systems that we discussed on the previous page. You may work with some of these devices or systems with your child. It is important to remember that not all children are the same, and what might work for one child may not necessarily work for another. So on our top left corner, we have what is called a core board, and this is usually printed on a piece of paper but it can come in many different sizes and shapes. On our right, we have an iPad, which is that high-tech device. You will notice that the iPad looks very similar to that core communication board, and you are correct. However, with an iPad, you are able to select a button and it will speak that message for you. On our bottom left-hand corner, we have what is called a dedicated communication system. And those can also come in many different shapes and sizes. However, these systems do not include things that the iPad does, such as apps, access to the internet, things like calculator or a clock. And then in the bottom, in the middle, we have what is called a pod book. And this pod book is often grouped together in different categories. It can be very thick and contains a ton of different pictures. And then lastly, on our bottom right, we have what are called switches, or they're often known as Big Macs. And this device allows us to pre-record a message or a word. And once you have that pre-recorded message, the user can hit the button and it will speak it out loud for them. So there are many different types of systems, but this just gives you an idea of how many different ones there are out there. This is a nice visual to remind us that communication is a fundamental human right, and everyone should have access and the ability to communicate. So in order for individuals to be successful communicators, we want them to communicate as independently as possible with as many communication partners and across a wide variety of environments. We want to make sure that users are able to communicate with both their friends, families, strangers. We also want to make sure that they aren't only able to communicate at school, but we want them to be able to use their communication when they're at the grocery store, when they're at home, when they're out on the playground. Parents are often concerned at first when their child starts using AAC, and that is totally normal. There are many myths out there about AAC, and we're going to go over those today. I'm often asked, can my child be too young to learn AAC? The answer is no. We start speaking to babies at birth. Therefore, they are not too young to have language modeled in an accessible way. AAC positively impacts language, literacy, cognition, and social skills. Another common question is, can my child be too old? No one is ever too old to understand and use language. We are taking away the fundamental human right to communicate if we do not provide them that experience. Can a child be too behavioral? The answer is also no. If communication isn't in place, the only way to communicate is through behavior. So often, if a child isn't given a system to communicate with, they're going to act out, and often it's aggressively. With communication in place, the behaviors will likely decrease. Will AAC keep an individual from talking? No. There are decades of research showing that AAC does not keep an individual from using or developing speech. We use multiple forms of communication each day, such as touching, pointing, gesturing, and AAC is just another method that we have access to. A study showed that 89% of individuals who used AAC also increased their speech production. And finally, is AAC useful for someone who has speech? Yes. AAC supports speech development and helps them to converse more independently. AAC can be used with their current expressive abilities. There are no prerequisites for learning AAC. This video we are about to watch shows a parent's perspective with using AAC with their child.
We started to suspect that Ava had Rett syndrome because she wasn't meeting some of the milestones that, as a parent you look for. And at 22 months, she was officially diagnosed. It must be really frustrating not to be able to use your hands, not to be able to talk, not to be able to just stand up and walk and go somewhere. I was on YouTube looking around and I found some videos of little girls with Rett syndrome using their Tobii Dynavox. As someone who's learned some languages, I know that the earlier you start, the better. So I thought, well, if this is something that we're going to do, let's get started with it.
My favorite thing about my sister is how she talks with her eyes.
Hi.
Hi.
I can understand everything you're saying. I am smart.
You're so smart, Ava.
I am funny.
I like that. So Ava uses an iSeries i12 device, and she uses that primarily for talking. And at school she has an iMini, our original PCI Go that we bought. She uses that for activities. It's a lot like starting off with a musical instrument like the piano. And you can't just buy a piano and then all of a sudden they're playing beautifully. You have to show them. They have to be exposed to music. They have to watch other pianists play. It's not a learning process just for Ava. It's a learning process for the entire family. When we first started, and I was just thinking, oh, please let her just be able to even select a button. How exciting would that be? And then, of course, she did that pretty quickly. And then she started saying single words here and there, and then started combining words, because I feel like that's the door to understanding Ava. And it's really exciting as a family. She's developing relationships with us, with her sister. Nothing makes me happier than watching Clara and Ava when they're playing, when we're reading and she's having fun. Clara and Ava will be snuggling with each other and saying, I love you, good night.
Good night.
Normally I'll walk into the door and she'll say a hi daddy on the Tobii Dynavox. That just gives me such a great feeling. It's just seeing the excitement in her eyes, that just getting her point across that people can understand. She's like a typical child and she's able to communicate freely with us.
We decided though from the start that we needed to be open with everybody, and Ava has a Facebook account that her friends and family can see what she's saying.
Can I try some?
Ava has a program on her Tobii that she can play music, play games, or draw. Here's a kid who is using her eyes to talk. It's helped her to control her emotions and to have some control over her life, learning to communicate, learning that she has a voice, learning that her voice has power. Some of the things that they said that she'd never be able to do, well, guess what? She's doing it.
In one word, I would describe Ava in awesome.
Next, we're going to go over some AAC best practices. There has been a lot of research on individuals who learn to communicate using AAC. Across many studies, these 4 best practices have been proven to work. Keep in mind, while becoming familiar with an AAC system might feel overwhelming or unnatural at first, the process for teaching an AAC user is very similar to how we teach anyone to understand and use language. We will go through each best practice one at a time to learn more. The first one is access. So we want to make sure that the system is accessible at all times to the user. The second one is modeling. Third is using core vocabulary. So we are going to focus on certain words. And lastly is providing the user with communication opportunities so that they can use that communication throughout their day. Access means that individuals should be able to touch, interact with, and use their AAC system. They need this access at all times of the day, regardless of the activity, behaviors, or their current skill level. AAC systems or devices should not be left in a backpack, on a shelf, or away from the individual at any time throughout the day. It is also important to ensure that they are fully charged for the next day. I like to remind parents that this system acts as their voice, and it should never be taken away from them, just like our voice is never taken away from us. Now let's talk a bit more about modeling. Learning a new language always involves a significant amount of input, such as listening and seeing, before you get that output, which is speaking or using the system. Modeling helps both you and the AAC learner learn that system. It helps to increase motivation, and it shows that the AAC system is a valid way of communicating. You, as parents, will use the communication system while you talk to show how it can be used. The best way to improve an individual's knowledge of how to use their AAC system is to model using it authentically, meaningfully, and interactively. You don't have to model everything you say. For example, when going to the grocery store, you can model the word go. So what exactly are we modeling? We are going to model the use of symbols to say real things. So we want to teach our users that by touching or selecting a symbol has a meaning. We also want to teach them what to say when. So for example, if you're walking into a room, we want to teach them to use a greeting, such as hello. We're also going to be teaching them grammar while modeling, so how to string words together in order to form a sentence. We also want to teach our users how exactly we use the device, such as turning it on and off, charging it, etc. And lastly, we want to help them with mistakes that may come up. It's not perfect using these systems, and we, as well as the AAC user themselves, are going to make mistakes. And we may not always select the right word in the right scenario. However, we want to teach them how we can repair these errors to make for more fluent conversation. Some general tips when modeling is to imagine that you are adding closed captions to a silent movie. Look at what your child is doing, feeling, and looking at. Look at what is happening around you and the child. And most importantly, you want to acknowledge what you see by saying it out loud and pointing to the pictures that match it. For example, I see you want to go outside. You would touch the word go or outside and go. Here's a video that will give you a better understanding of what modeling looks like and how we can use modeling to best support our child.
Learning to communicate using picture systems can be challenging for anyone who is nonverbal, minimally verbal, or is an emerging communicator. It can be especially difficult if the student has autism. This video will explain one strategy used to support language development and teach children to communicate with their picture-based augmentative communication systems. This strategy is called aided language. Aided language is also known as aided language stimulation, aided language input, aided language immersion, or augmented language. It was created by Elder, Gossens, and Crane and is based on the idea that by watching others use pictures during motivating activities, children begin to learn that the picture symbols can be used as communication tools. To practice aided language, we model or provide examples to the child of how to communicate using pictures. The concept is simple. You have to speak with pictures if you want them to speak in pictures. If you were teaching them French, you would speak to them in French. They have to be exposed to people speaking with pictures in order to learn how to speak with pictures like you would do in any language immersion program. This is how it would look like. You will pair the key word with his pictures as you talk. For example, if you want to tell the child time to eat your crackers, you would point to crackers. As you get better at speaking with pictures, you will start using more keywords. For example, you might say, time to eat your crackers. In addition to modeling directives, you also need to comment on what the child is hearing, seeing, and doing with body language. For example, if you see that the child is resting his head on the table and rubbing his eyes, you can say, I think you're tired. Aided language can be used with low-tech communication systems or high-tech communication systems. In this next video, you're going to see a child with his EA and his EA providing support with a high-tech communication device that she carries.
Need a break? Okay, Ryan, no, not yet. I need you to have something to eat. Good job.
You should use aided language to model communication for many purposes, such as making comments. Look, ball go in. Asking questions. Where did you go? Sharing information. She has new shoes. And greetings. Hi, how are you? Remember, we are using pictures to provide examples so that the child learns to use pictures to communicate back to us. So we need to talk about things that the child finds interesting, motivating, and useful. Use short, simple language, speak slowly, and pause at times during the conversational flow. Use lots of repetition as you describe ongoing events. Keep in mind that this will initially slow down your communication, but that's okay because you're also learning, and this will help you to understand how hard it is to use picture-based augmentative communication systems. It is just like learning a new language. To maximize the child's learning, we should aim to use pictures to communicate with the child at least 20 times per hour. This might sound like too much on top of everything else you have to do, but think about how verbal kids learn to talk. By the time they are 18 months old, they have been exposed to approximately 4,400 hours of language. That is 8 hours a day of hearing spoken language for 18 months. So, if a nonverbal child is exposed to picture-based communication for only 10 minutes per day, then it would take them 84 years to reach the same level of language exposure as the 18-month-old verbal child. Our goal is that the child will eventually start pointing at the pictures to tell you things, praise them, and continue using aided language to have a conversation with them. Aided language should be used in a turn-taking manner, and focus should be placed on having an enjoyable, shared interaction together.
We are going to talk a bit more about the communication partner role. As a parent, you play a very important role in your child's communication. We need to learn our child's visual language. So that means that we need to talk to our child using pictures or whatever system they are using in order for them to learn how to talk using pictures. Our input needs to reflect what we want their output to look like. So this is a nice visual that shows that if we have a child who uses spoken language and we provide them with spoken language, then we will get that as an output. However, if we have children learning aided symbols and we only use spoken language, they are not only going to be confused, but they are going to be unable to use that aided language. So if we provide our children that input of aided language, then we will get their output of aided language. So it's important to remember that your input has to be what you want their output to be. By 18 months, babies have heard 4,380 hours of spoken language. And at that point, we don't expect them to be fluent speakers yet. If AAC learners only see symbols modeled twice weekly for 20 to 30 minutes, it will take them 84 years to have the same exposure to aided language as an 18-month-old has to spoken language. So that is just a nice reminder that we need to be modeling AAC consistently in order for that user to have success and to be able to use their system. Next, we're going to move on to the third best practice, which is using core vocabulary. Core words are a small set of words that make up about 80% of the words that we say day to day. Core words are usually verbs such as go, come, adjectives such as good, little, prepositions, to, on, off, pronouns, you, that, articles such as the and a, and conjunctions such as and but. Core words can be combined in a variety of ways. For example, once a child learns the word go, they can use it to say, go there, go away, or don't go. The word go can be used anywhere, including at the store, at school, and at home. Words such as volcano, truck, or mouse cannot be used in a bunch of environments. Fringe words, on the other hand, make up that other 20%. So they are activity-specific words, which are mostly nouns that have a more narrow meaning than core words. They are not often used across multiple environments. So here are a list of top words used by most people. So they are words like I, yes, no, help, go, more, want, etc. I want you to see what you can say using only the words on the screen. So I will give you 30 seconds to think of things that you can say using these words. Okay, so I hope you were able to come up with a bunch of different examples of situations in which you can use some of these core words. For example, more can be used if I want more water, more puzzles, more sleep. So it can be used across a variety of environments. However, like I said, fringe words such as volcano, grass, caterpillar, I can't use those words as frequently. Core words tend to be words that we will get the most bang for our buck. These are those important words in order for our children to get their needs and wants met. And that is why we teach those core words as opposed to fringe words. Now let's talk a bit about communication opportunities. Communication opportunities are the times of the day when the AAC user is given an opportunity to interact meaningfully using their system. These opportunities can have many different functions, including talking with a friend, asking for something, answering a question, or telling someone what to do. Using an AAC system with meaningful, motivating communication opportunities leads to increased success and progress. Opportunities show AAC users what communication is all about. You can get what you want, connect with others, and express your thoughts and feelings. The research shows that AAC users need 200 opportunities every day to learn to use the system well. So as SLEAs and EAs, it's important for us to provide them with those opportunities. We need to set up that environment in order to get them to communicate. For example, if you are trying to target the word more and you want to get them to use that word during snack time, it would be beneficial for you to hold on to what they want more of. So if they're eating crackers and they want more, you would be holding on to those crackers in order to get them to use that word. And as soon as they use that word, you would then provide them with that cracker. So here's a nice visual of some of the functions of communication, which were discussed earlier. We use communication often to make requests, such as, I want crackers. However, it's often tempting to stick to requesting, such as, I want ball, I want cookie, before moving on to teaching other functions. But doing this will only limit the language skills of the AAC user. So it's important that we teach them a variety of different functions to communicate. We want them to be able to ask questions, greet, label items, share information, etc. How are we going to make sure that AAC users achieve their goal? We are going to model, allow wait time, take turns, create those opportunities, respect their message, learn their system, take it everywhere so that they always have access to it, update their system regularly, such as keeping a list of vocabulary items that you want added, troubleshoot, and use a multimodal approach, meaning using a bunch of different systems or pictures to communicate. We are going to dive into some of these a little further. Allowing wait time. Individuals using AAC often require more time to comprehend or process the language. They need more time to both initiate and respond. So a good rule of thumb is to count to 15 in your head. Make sure that you're giving them that 15 seconds either to initiate or respond. Expectant pause. It's often helpful if you look at the student with your eyebrows raised to indicate that you're waiting for their response. However, you don't always have to use that approach. Also, remind other people that interact with the individual that they need to be given wait time. So it's your job as an EA that is working with the child to teach the classroom teacher, their peers, the rest of the school staff, some of these steps so that the user can communicate with a variety of different people. And most importantly, don't talk for the individual. Allow them to communicate themselves. Another best practice is to accept and respond to all communication attempts. You will develop language and teach the power of communication when you acknowledge your child's communication. You can also expand on your child's utterance. For example, during snack time, the child presses cookie on his device, and you respond with, yes, you want more cookie, by pressing more and cookie on the device. By expanding on their utterance, you are not only repeating the word for multiple exposure to it, but you are also working on increasing their vocabulary by teaching them the word more. It's also important that we ask more open-ended questions instead of only yes/no questions. This is often a hard thing to get used to. However, it is very important that we do so. It encourages more complex language and more rewarding interactions. You can ask, what did you do in gym today? Instead of, did you have fun in gym? That way you are getting the child to practice using more language and getting them familiar and used to using new words instead of just yes and no. Taking turns. So model for individuals that back and forth communication exchange. Take your turn, but not the individual's turn, and incorporate that wait time between turns. Implementation of strategies to promote turn taking. So point to AAC system to indicate to the individual that it is their turn to talk. You can practice this skill by choosing a motivating activity or game for the child. So for example, if you're building a tower, you can take turns putting a piece on the tower. Next, we have creating opportunities. Individuals may need 500 or more exposures to a message before they use it without prompting. So that is why it is so important that we create these opportunities within their environment in order for them to use it on their own. Identifying within the day opportunities for the AAC user to interact using their system with peers. For example, co-presenting a classroom project, asking a friend to play, and suggesting what they can play, playing simple games, asking a friend to read with them, telling a joke. There's no right or wrong communication activity or specific way to do it. Just try it. We need communication in every environment or activity that we are a part of. So like I said, there is no wrong activity, no wrong way to do it. Just go ahead and try it. You want to make sure that you're creating those opportunities in a wide variety of environments. Because as we said earlier, it's important for the child to be able to communicate across multiple environments, such as in the gym at school, out on the playground, in the lunchroom, in the classroom, etc. So that's why it's important to bring that device everywhere and create those opportunities in multiple environments. Respect the message. It's important to respond to the individual's message. For example, if they say, I want to swing, you would respond with, yes, let's go on the swings. Or, if we want to make it simpler, go on swings. Validate the message with real communication. So if they point to tired on their board, you can respond with, yes, you look tired today. I feel tired too. And remember, you don't always have to make those long sentences. You can respond with 1 to 2 words or 2 to 3 words, depending on where the student is at. At first, some individuals may overuse some symbols or messages on their board, such as I need a break. This needs to be honored every time initially so they learn the meaning of the message and the power of communication. If they're asking to go for a walk every 5-10 minutes, at the beginning you are going to go on that walk because we need to make sure that we are respecting their message and teaching them that what they are pressing has power. So some tips to remember is that you want to provide access to the board or device. Have your child bring it everywhere with them, whether it's at the school, at home, at the grocery store, out on the playground. Make sure they have it everywhere with them. Remember, this is their voice. You want to also continue to teach and add new words. So don't just focus on 1 or 2 words. Continue to add upon their vocabulary. And make sure that they're using multiple functions to communicate. We don't want them only to be requesting. We want them to do things such as greet, comment, ask and answer questions. We also want to provide repeated exposure to the new word in many different environments. So for example, if you are targeting that word go, target it everywhere, such as the train goes. Let's go to the store. Let's go outside. Targeted in every different environment that you possibly can. And lastly, we want to make sure that we are providing opportunities for our child to practice using their system. So here are just some resources that I listed for you to check out on your own time. If you ever feel stuck with a student, look to these sites for videos, recommendations, and activities. And as always, don't ever hesitate to reach out to your SLP if you're feeling stuck. Thanks for supporting our AAC users. Miigwech, Kinaskamatin, Kinanakomin, Badamaye. Thank you for watching. Be sure to watch our other videos in this series. You can find them on our website at mfnerc.org. If you have any comments or questions, please email the Speech and Language and Literacy team at speechandliteracy@mfnerc.com.